Hi, I'm Bart Hanson. I'm the owner and operator of CrushLivePoker.com. The following hand comes from our call-in show that we record at 4:45 p.m. Pacific Time every Monday. If you want to call in your hand, check out the phone number in the description.
Yes, this is Alex V from San Jose.
Oh, what's up, Alex?
So, good. Hey, I have a question. It's not related to a specific hand,
Okay,
but there's this concept of bomb pots that we do a lot.
sure.
And we are usually playing either, 2-5-10, 2-3-5-10,
Right.
or 5-5-10-20.
Is this at the Bay?
So, yeah, at the Bay.
Yep, okay.
So, when the dealer changes, we just like in a 2-3-5-10 game, we usually go $40 each. So
Wow, that's a lot
the
for that,
pot,
because what are the stacks, usually?
well, it's 2,000 buy-in.
Okay.
It is the pot pre-flop is about 9 times 4. It's like 360.
Yeah.
So an average stack is maybe like 1,500, 1,400, something like that.
Okay, and
So
you're doing it at
we're
every
talking.
dealer change, basically?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's about a PR of 4 to 5.
Yeah.
And I talked to a friend of mine who's a pretty good player, and like he told me like an example, a case like he had King 7 in a bomb pot, and the flop came Ace King 7 Rainbow, and he was prepared to bet fold bottom 2 pair. So like my question is like how would you approach playing bomb pot?
Well, so Conlon and I have spoken about this a little bit, and I've tried to bring it over to the regular podcast, and we actually might do a specific piece of content, specifically talking about bomb pots. But the idea is that obviously, so in a bomb pot, everyone is entirely uncapped preflop. People are putting an ante in, and they can have any 2 cards. So you cannot logically deduce what somebody has after the flop, except based upon their betting and their action. Like there's no range considerations because everyone's range is 100%. That's why bomb pots for PLO high are so dumb because anyone can have the nuts at any time, and it just doesn't make it's just pointless. PLO bomb pots are really dumb, but Hold'em's okay. PLO 8 bomb pots are actually the best because you force people to play hands they don't normally do. But the idea here is that you really should use small sizing with your entire range. Whether it's for protection, whether you have the nuts, or as a bluff, or with sort of some hand that you're going to basically bet fold. When I see people like betting, like say the board's King 9-7, and people even betting his hands as like strong as like Ace King for pot, I think that's a big mistake. So I think that the sizing probably should be like 30 to 40%, almost consistently, that first bet on the flop.
Yeah, so what I see is like most of the better players, they bet 200 into the bomb pot. Like
200
they
and
bet,
360? That's still probably a little bit big.
At least 200,
Yeah.
or maybe like 220, 240 sometimes, about 2/3.
Yeah,
The
I mean,
flop.
I think that that's a little bit big. I mean, the other thing that I would say about bomb pots too is that you could certainly, if you want to, especially if you can pick up on sizing tells, you can play draws really aggressively. And I think positional awareness comes into play. What I mean by that is like if it gets checked over to the button and you're in the small blind, and you even have a hand as bad as just a flush draw, if it gets checked over the button, you think that the button, because everyone checked to him, is like, especially on a board where the top pair is going to change. Like say the board, for example, came out 10-4-5 with a 2 flush, and it got checked over the button bet like 200 and 360, and you're in the small blind with like Queen 9 suited of the flush card or something, of the flush. Like you could, I mean, this goes back to old school Crush Live Poker stuff. Like you can attack that all day long because people don't even want to go to war with like top and bottom there, Alex. You know what I mean? Like they don't want to go broke in that spot. And you would imagine that somebody else in the field would bet 2 pair plus, sometimes like getting later like Ace 10 plus for protection. So when you look on a flop, again, I'm just going to write this up for the people that are following us on YouTube. If you were to look at a flop of 10-4-5 where top pair is going to change, it's very draw heavy, people are going to bet a 10 as they get closer to the button. And if they're checking a 10 from up front, like a hand like King 10, Queen 10, then the button bets and you check raise with a draw. Even if you had a draw as light as like Deuce 3 with a backdoor flush draw, the people in between with a 10 are going to fold. And we've basically determined that they don't really have a lot of sets or two pair because they've checked. And people don't want to slow play these spots. You see what I'm saying? Like the slow playing is sort of goes down. Then you can force a lot of people off of hands. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand that concept. What I'm talking more about is like how do you react to people's bet? Like at what point do you kind of like say, okay, I'm going to go with this hand or not? Because let's say if somebody could play like a board like ace, like ace 10 on a board of 10 4 5,
Mm-hmm.
like ace 10 is the nut. But then, well, not the nuts, but like a pretty strong hand. But you could have a hand like king, and I see a lot of people getting in trouble with hands specifically like big overpairs like kings.
Oh,
Queens,
so you're just saying like
where
what is the value? I mean, I don't know off the top of my. I think actually, I might have on a video. I think maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. I pulled over Pro Poker Tools in one of these hands where I said. Oh, I think which one was it? Oh, it was the hand that I was on the podcast where I checked back 6-4. I don't remember exactly what the hand was, but I checked back like the weakest trips. I think the board had come out Jack 4-4. Yeah, I had 6-4. Guy in the big blind bet out on Jack 4-4, and I had the worst trips. I had 6-4 like from MP2, and I just called. But what I learned from that was the question was that on Jack 4-4 Rainbow. And let's say you're first to act in the small blind or the big blind. What are the chances that someone has trips? Okay. And I think it was like 47% against 8 random hands. So when you start to look at that and the small blind leads out and you have King Jack next to act in the big blind, that becomes a very easy fold. Ace Jack might not even be a continue there because I was just calculating trip fours. What about trip fours or better? It's probably like 52%. So the point that I'm making, Alex, is that like you have to definitely recognize, as I'm writing this out in big blind with say King Jack or Ace Jack, you have to recognize where the bet comes from, the positional awareness, and you can fool around with Flopzilla and Pro Poker Tools against entirely random ranges and see where those hands fare. I would be very, very concerned if I had kings or if I had aces on 10-4-5 with, say, like the ace of hearts and somebody in the blind came out and bet, and I was in very early position. I think you could make a case where, like, kings or aces, especially blocking the nut flush draw, big blind versus small blind on a lead out 10-4-5 is going to be a fold because of the people behind you. Now, obviously, it's different if you're closing the action right on the button. But the positional awareness is very, very important in these particular spots.
What if you had like top two pair versus like is that a hand that you would like be comfortable? Like what hand, like what strength of hand would you be comfortable continuing on? Let's say if you were in the middle position and somebody in early position led out.
On 10-4-5?
Yeah, like what kind of hand you would be like? Okay, I understand, like, of course, if you had, like, a set of 10s, you would be, like, fist pump kind of thing. But if like, what if you had, like, 10-5? What if you had 10-4? What kind of hands, like, obviously, like, a set of fours, would you be concerned with a set of fours?
Right, I think what I would say is that I don't know if you should, it's an interesting question. I'm not sure exactly if you should have a raising range for that reason. Because, like, when you have, and I don't know about this is just sort of off the cuff, and again, when we do this content about bomb pots, we'll probably bring this into play, but that specific question that you ask sort of lends me to think that maybe you're not supposed to have a raising range because in other situations, you can play a range advantage based upon the action pre-flop. Here, everybody's entirely uncapped, so you sort of protect yourself against draws. You protect yourself when you have a draw. And also, you're not really like getting yourself into a way ahead, way behind situation. So whatever hands that I feel like I might continue on with, I might call against an early position lead This is just against an early position lead. The configuration in bomb pots, and someone said I wrote an article about this in Card Player. I did. It was drawn from the podcast. The configuration considerations move from pre-flop to flop in bomb pots. So if someone leads out from early position, maybe you shouldn't raise with anything. Do you see what I'm saying? Whether it's your strong hands, your medium hands, or your draws. If you follow what I'm saying.
Well, if there is if the board is really draw heavy, you want to, somebody could easily be leading out with like a combo draw, and you have like the nuts, like you would just flat with like a set of tens there.
Well,
like
I mean
10,
that
4,
just
5.
sort of just brings it into like an exploit, right? I mean, yeah, you could certainly fast play your very strong hands too, and be a little bit unbalanced, right? But it's tough for me to give you the answer that you're looking for about like, what hand are you going to be, what hand are you getting in? Like 10, 4, 5, right? The other thing, too, is you got to pay attention to the way that people play bomb pots. I've seen people drastically overplay spots where I had thought that I would fold situations to them, but then after I realized how badly they play the bomb pots, now I would never fold against them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Unless they make an adjustment.
If I had like 4, 5, like somebody could be, with a hand like aces, might be just like just going crazy with their hand of king, for example, or even like queen.
I mean, and again, to raise like an early position better on any board with just one pair, I think is pretty bad. Because again, if you were to go just run poker tools and then run.
Yeah, no, I agree with that spot, but. Like, would you just fold top pair most of the time? Like somebody leads out, okay, you have top pair. Let's say you're on the button, somebody in early position, they lead out 10, 4, 5, you have like king 10.
Yeah.
Would you just fold there or call? Like, let's say it's like an average player.
I mean, probably.
Call and then evaluate the turn?
Well, yeah, I mean, so I'd start maybe look at my backdoors a little bit too. Right? Like, I mean, obviously, if you've got king 10 with a hard in it, it's a little bit better because you can pick up additional equity. If you have ace 10, it's a little bit better. Ace 10 with a heart in it's a little bit better because you can also pick up backdoor heart and backdoor straightening equity too. But yeah, like in general, against early position lead from the small or the big blind, I would imagine that one pair is probably not going to be a candidate to call. You can obviously loosen up on the button too if everyone else is folded, right? Because the guy might check to you on the turn. But if you're talking about early position versus early position and then having to deal with the field behind you, yeah, I mean, you have to only really continue with a very strong range. I hope that answers your question there, Alex. Do the best I can. And like I said, look for that bomb pot content that we're actually
I'll be looking forward to that.
Yeah, that we're going to probably put out for free to everybody. So thanks for the call. Hey guys, if you like what you've seen here, please click on the subscribe button and you'll get notified every time we put up a new video. And if you want to check out CrushLivePoker.com for the first month free, use the code YTA200. Click on the link right there.